Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. This included 1 campaign mission and 2 multiplayer operations. And I gotta say, for what little content was available, I played a significant amount of time, mainly because it was a lot of fun. The core loop of playing this game, stomping through levels as a hulking space marine while tearing through never-ending waves of aliens, it was just very satisfying. After my time,
I'm not gonna lie, it looks really, really good so far. I mean, the combat doesn't look too bad, but let's see what he says about the combat, because just how it looks can be very deceiving. But I'm liking what I've seen so far.
time with the game here over this past week, I am just really looking forward to seeing everything else it has to offer upon full release. I have played 25 hours of Space Marine 2 so far. Here's what I think about it. While there is some exposition, pauses to appreciate the environment, build some narrative, and a few cutscenes, 95% of my time playing was nothing but pure, uninterrupted combat, so it's a good thing that
I mean, that is very good to hear. But I mean, just because it was like nothing, I mean, mostly combat, that doesn't mean it's good. So let's see what he says. Like, cause I agree with some of his, opinions on some games. Some games I don't like, cause the first Ascendant really didn't click for him. Yeah, it clicked for me. I have like over 100 hours in it. So
combat feels fantastic. I mean, I love it. You're smashing through hordes of enemies using a mix of melee, ranged attacks, and defensive moves in a sort of dance that reminded me a lot of Shadow of Mordor. You'll use like big sweeping AoE attacks to deal with the massive hordes of basic enemies. Precise heavy-hitting strikes for the larger, I guess we could call them elites, all while also paying close attention for any reactive maneuvers you need to make, because besides...
Okay, that's good, because he brought up Shadow of Mordor, and if you don't know, they kind of based that system off of the Arkham Knight games. So it's kind of got like a rhythm to it, and that's great.
Dealing damage, avoiding taking damage is a big focus in combat. This includes things like dodging ranged shots from snipers that have a charge up indicated by a green laser prior to them blasting, blocking and or parrying any incoming common attacks, which will be marked with these blue indicators, and dodging the non-parryable, non-blockable heavy attacks that are marked with these red ones. For all of the incoming special attacks, you are basically given this opportunity for a perfect response, which if done in proper timing, results in a perfect parry or perfect dodge, both of which let you follow up with a counter shot. Now, this not only does some extra damage to the enemy, but it also restores 1 pip of your armor, which is vital because keeping your armor topped off is the #1 survival tool. Armor is essentially like an overshield that will deplete before you take any health damage. So as you receive damage, your armor will slowly go down, but then also it regenerates when you are out of combat, whereas health doesn't automatically regenerate ever. It requires the use of a consumable to fill back up. So your main goal is to reduce taking health damage as much as possible, which you do by keeping your armor full. So beyond nailing those perfect parries and dodges that result in you landing a counter and getting more armor, you can also execute any near dead enemies to regain a pip of armor on top of that. Now, these executes each come with unique animations of you ending the enemy's existence.
So the armor is the 3 bars underneath. So I wonder if you can like get more armor. Like, can you like spec out your characters? I don't know anything really about this game like that. Like, I like build crafting. That's the reason I like, Destiny so much, MMOs so much, that you can build stuff. Am I just stuck at 3 bars of shield or armor or whatever? Like, can I get more later in the game? But we'll see. Let's find out. I don't know if he knows
invulnerable to taking any damage. And all of these systems, with all of them combined, like I said, it makes combat sort of feel like a bit of a dance. You're attacking using combos that amount to spamming left and right click, which are your range.
The Arkham Knight
but also
gameplay.
alternating that spamming with variations by holding down a charge, pausing in between a combo, or swapping stances for different attack patterns. So depending on which threats are in your immediate vicinity and what it is they're doing, the combination of what you're doing is going to vary. Yes, you'll be clearing out the hordes of weaker enemies using the cleaves and AoE attacks and grenades, while also parrying and dodging any of the blue or red indicators that pop up, following up with counter shots to regain some armor, executing weakened enemies to regain more armor, as well as take advantage of the invulnerability. And you'll also want to pay attention to focus down any priority targets, like ranged enemies, or enemies calling in for reinforcements, which you can interrupt by hitting with a charged attack. You also have that dodge with iframes that can be spammed, although there is an animation cooldown in between dodges.
So the gameplay just, it's not mindless gameplay. You know, you got to think about your shields, your health. You got to think about, like, I need to, like, execute this enemy, or I need to go stop this ranged enemy and stuff, because it's just peppering me while all these other enemies around me. Oh, this one enemy is over here calling other enemies. So there's a lot of stuff to think about, like, when you're playing. You can see, like, there's tons of enemies on the screen. So I bet at first, yes, it's going to be kind of overwhelming to you, like, learn the enemies, learn what they do, when to execute them, you know, to get your shield back and all that. So it sounds like there's a balance. It's a dance to it. Dance, baby, dance.
Dodging, during which you can be hit. Combat might look hectic and crazy, almost overwhelming at times, but honestly, the more I played, the more it started to feel really straightforward and organized. Like, for every moment while you're wading through these hordes, there is an ideal thing you can be doing. It's sort of all a matter of learning what that is as you play. And
it looks crazy.
I kept playing, getting more comfortable with my character, with all of their attack patterns, moves, the ways of dealing damage and dealing with the enemies, it got more and more satisfying, to the point where being in the middle of 100 enemies kind of feels the same as facing off against just 2 or 3 of them. There's this feeling of flow while you're in combat. Like, I'll be standing in the middle of this huge group, it'll be something like this. Like, I'll cleave a few times to work down the smaller enemies, parry a blue attack, counter, cleave again, toss a grenade, dodge a red attack, counter, cleave, execute a low health enemy, cleave, dodge, counter, heavy ranged attack to interrupt that guy calling for reinforcements, cleave again, dodge, counter. The whole flow of combat, it really just goes like this the entire time, and it feels so satisfying once you get it down. Largely, this is in part due to these great animations and sounds, along with what has been pretty flawless performance for me personally. Like, it feels good, it looks good, and it ran smoothly on my rig the entire time. So yeah, combat, 5 stars, like, amazing. I absolutely really loved it. So that is the combat itself, but what about the content, the things that you're doing while executing this combat? Well, like I said, we had access to a single campaign mission as well as 2 multiplayer operations. So for the campaign mission, this was called Void Song. We were told that it is from roughly around the midpoint of the story campaign. Now, I don't want to spoil any of the narrative parts of it, but we did see and do a few interesting things that I'd like to point out. So while cleaving our way through the hordes, we encountered things like multiple world building sections where we had a time to sort of take a moment, pause, and soak in the environment. It looks like they've done a good job of executing on that grim feeling of the
game looks great. Like, man, I know a little bit about the 40k universe, and I know this universe is very expansive. You know, a lot of creatures, a lot of planets. Like, I just haven't played that many of them. And the last game I played was Warhammer 40k Dark Tide. That game looked great, but it was like a very, like, dark and, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, enclosed game, like. But this looks like you're outside. You can see all the... It looks great. It looks amazing.
40k universe. Also, the scale of everything was impressive, from the massive towering structures to the never-ending waves of enemies pouring through the streets and the well-oiled military machinery that was there to confront them. It's just all so darn gritty and cool looking. I really appreciated it. There's also quite a bit of enemy variety. You've got the basic Tyranid hordes that would like run up and try to swarm all around you, and then you've got larger, more elite variations of those, like these dual-wielding melee knights, the ranged snipers, the stealth assassins, the bombers. We got ones that would toss out landmines. There were the floating squid things that were all about supporting and buffing the other Tyranid enemies. We also came across some bad guy Space Marines. Apologies, I'm not really up on all of my Space Marine lore and factions and all of that, but these were kind of cool looking. They were like ethereal, and they would explode into this cosmic confetti when you killed them. I thought it looked really neat. There was also a couple of mini bosses, like the massive hulking Carnifex that has this bull charge, which shoot out acid, in addition to have some just really heavy hitting melee attacks. For one section of the mission, we were given access to our jump packs, which would let us fly.
Now, I don't know a lot. Like I said, I don't know a lot about this universe. It sounds like in like, I don't know, what are those creatures called? The alien looking creatures? It looks, I mean, what he said, it sounds like there's a lot of like, you know, like different types of those creatures. But I like, let me know in the comments, are there like even more like creatures, like alien, like different like alien creatures in the universe? Like could they really expand on the enemy variety and stuff? And no, he just said about like the evil Space Marines and stuff. So those, that's two types of enemies right there. But are there even more? Like, could we have like, you know, 5, 6 different enemy types if they like keep building on this game?
Fly up high into the air and then smash down, cratering into anyone unfortunate enough to be landed upon. This was one of my favorite things from the original game, so I'm happy they brought back the jetpack sections here in Space Marine 2. Also, at various intervals, we would come across these stations that would let us swap out our kit, letting us change our melee and ranged weapon choices. These included things like marksman bolt carbines, bolt rifles, incinerators, chain swords, power swords, combat knives, plasma and bolt pistols. Much of the expected 40k weaponry did seem to be present. And then the mission all ended with a big boss encounter. Again, not something I want to spoil, but it was genuinely interesting in terms of its mechanics, and also it was a bit difficult. We failed.
I love to hear mechanics
before being able to finish the fight. So this one mission that we did took us slightly over an hour to complete. Now, I will say we were playing on the second difficulty, so it is likely.
I mean, that's still good, but are all the missions like that? They could have just let them play this one mission because it was the longest. You know, this one probably took I mean, this one took like, what do you say, like an hour or so, but the other ones can be like 10-20 minutes. I mean, if most of the missions are this long, I am down. I'm not gonna lie, that's great. I did not realize this video is 25 minutes.
The first difficulty. The developer has said that we can expect the total campaign length to run around 10 to 12 hours, but again, this is likely going to depend on the difficulty that you're playing on.
10 to 12 hours. That's not very long. I guess that's
beyond the campaign mission
normal.
In this preview, like I said, we got to take a look at operations. Operations are one of the 2 types of multiplayer that are going to be in the game come release. Now, the other multiplayer, called Eternal War, is this 6 vs 6 competitive PvP mode where you go in and compete.
I wouldn't play that.
For objectives like killing the opposing team, capturing points, etc. Now, this is what I was most looking forward to, so I was a bit bummed that this mode wasn't.
Now, this may be a hot take. I'm all good for like the PvE modes and stuff, the horde modes, stuff like that and everything. I think if it's like a shooter or something, like, or something similar like to like this game, I think it should have PvP. Even like the First Ascendant. I love the First Ascendant, how it's all PvE and everything. I think it should have PvP. Now, saying that, I don't think PvP should be the main focus for all games. You know, it just should be a fun thing to hop into. It shouldn't be hyper competitive. Like, if, I don't know, they'll probably never add PvP to the First Ascendant. But if they did, I would not, you know, be very against it. Not at all. I just hope they wouldn't be hyper focused on it and nerfing stuff because of PvP. Just let it be like a little fun mode. It doesn't have to be hyper competitive or anything at all. Just let it be. No, maybe add a few things here and there. Never nerf, never buff things. You know, it's just a little side mode. The main focus, the main game is PvE. You know, doing the missions, fighting the Colossi and stuff like that. And like with this game, like how the Space Marines and stuff has PvP, I think it's really gonna keep the game more relevant, you know, in the long term. You know, even if they don't, like, you know, buff stuff, nerf stuff, and keep on adding onto it, it would just be like a fun little mode to go to and have fun, just wacky fun. Sorry, I know this is a long video. I'm
included in the preview
it's like
build.
20,
However,
25
when we
minutes.
To play, I also really enjoyed. Operations are handcrafted missions where you play as one of 6 distinct classes with up to 2 other people, moving through levels that act as sort of side stories to the main campaign. In fact, one of the operations we had access to was a direct reference to events
Looks
that
so
we saw
good.
take place in the campaign mission that we had access to. Funny enough, also, operations, they actually remind me a bit of Warhammer 40k Darktide. No joke. At least in terms of their structure. It works like this. You're just moving through what are relatively linear levels, fighting groups of enemies, and
yeah, see, that's
mixed up from one run to a next. You might see a different combination of enemies in any given section. There's also multiple objectives for you to clear as you go throughout, and occasionally side bosses can appear in the middle of a mission. I wouldn't say it has quite the depth or variety of the Darktide missions, but it is very similar in its overall structure.
I kind of feel like playing Darktide.
A streamlined version of what they did in that game. So the 2 operations we had access to were Inferno, where Titus asks us to block the Tyranid advance long enough for his team to be able to withdraw. So we need to go in, detonate a nearby refinery, and then set off a massive explosion right on top of the Tyranid swarms. And the second operation, Decapitation, had us chasing down a Hive Tyrant, luring him to a supply bridge that we would detonate, and if that didn't do the trick, we would have to chase down and eliminate the swarm leader ourselves. Spoiler, it didn't do the trick, and we had to chase down and eliminate it ourselves. So yeah, you're just moving through these levels, taking on the hordes of Tyranids, completing objectives at these various intervals, and managing your resources, trying to stay alive. There's a set number of revives for every mission. The harder the difficulty you play on, the harder the enemies, but also the more numerous the enemies, the more variety of enemies you're going to see, and also the fewer revives you get. In addition to this, occasionally while you're playing through the mission, you're going to come across things like mini bosses. These can spawn at certain points throughout moving through a mission's levels. The 2 mini bosses that we saw were the Neurothrope, this giant floating squid looking thing. He would pulsate out these AoE rings. He had a few ranged blast attacks, like these big globs he would shoot out, or this sweeping beam attack. And he would also place damaging pools on the ground that you had to avoid. And then there was the
Jesus, getting
boss.
fucked up.
This was the same type of boss that we saw in that one campaign mission. He could show up in these operations operations. He once again had big melee cleaves, he could shoot acid, he had a ground slam, and he would do this bull rush charge where you can actually guide him into walls, and if you do so successfully, it stuns him momentarily. And then there was also just a full-on boss fight in one of the 2 operations that we saw. This was against that Hive Tyrant. He had a ton of different attacks, lots of huge lunging sweeps that he would do that you would have to dodge because you couldn't block or parry them. This actually made for a lot of potential opportunities, if done perfectly, to get encounter shots, which was kind of nice. He would also place down these damaging AoE pools for you to avoid. He had these ranged sweeping attacks where he would shoot a large arc that at one player that you would have to dodge. Would also periodically summon in additional Tyranids for you to take out, and he had this shout that would pulsate out in damage rings that you could avoid by doing your iframe dodge right as the ring passed over. Now, while these levels are very linear, you're going through, you're clearing the enemies, they do have like these occasional branching paths where they might split momentarily and then meet up like 10 to 20 seconds later, but they are linear, but you do still have to pay a bit of attention. You want to be looking around because all along the edges and in a select few alcoves in each of the levels are very valuable pickups that you need to be on the lookout for. Now, a lot of this stuff is to just keep you going because this game, especially on the higher difficulties, you are limited on resources. You're limited on health, you're limited on ammo, and you're taking a lot of damage. So you got to keep refilling your reserves. So you're going to find health kits. You can carry by default a maximum of 2 of these at any given time. You're going to find ammo crates. This is universal ammo. It'll work for whatever
it's a cool looking sword
weapon type, but you're going to be pretty limited on the number of crates you have, although occasionally you will find crates that will have unlimited ammo for particular sections of levels. You're also going to find a large variety of grenade types. You can pick and equip these, and then you use them. Once you're out, you'll have to find more to re-pick up. You will find what's called an armor boost, which gives you actually 1 extra bonus pip of armor on top of the ones you have by default. And then occasionally you'll come across a guardian relic. This lets the holder of the relic self-revive upon death, which is very convenient, especially at not capping out on your limited number of revives per match. And on top of that, every single level has what is called a hidden armory data.
It seems like there's a lot of stuff, like a lot of mechanics going on, and I see right here he has 4 now, so I don't know how he got that, but that's good to see. I like that, like the armor and stuff. He only had 3 bars of armor, now he has 4s, so I don't know if that was like an upgrade or something. I don't know, but that's good to see. I wonder if you can get more health too. I don't know.
This floating skull, which if found can then be used to permanently upgrade one of your weapons. Now there again are
so you can upgrade weapons.
Tiers. Things get significantly more difficult. The enemies that you're facing against, the amount of damage they're doing, the variety, the number of enemies that you're coming up against. Even just moving from the tier 1 difficulty to tier 2 provided a significant jump in challenge in difficulty. But with that, you get increased mission rewards. So in completing a mission, you will be rewarded experience for the class that you're playing, as well as the weapons that you're using. Both of these have progression systems that you level up and make them better. You're also given currency, which is used for upgrading your weapons, as well as purchasing cosmetic unlocks, and the armory data, which once again is used for powering up your weapons into these higher rarities. The rewards that you get will be scaling with the difficulty, so that means the higher the difficulty, the more experience, the more currency, and the higher rarity of data, weapon upgrade data that you find. So there were 6 operations in total listed in the build that we played, although we only had access to the first 2 of these. And from what I've read, these 6 are the 6 that the game will be launching with, and then they plan to add additional ones with free updates post-release. I will say, I do wish there were a bit more than 6 to start, but even as is, it can offer a fair bit of replayability, especially with those 4 difficulty tiers to play through. How long are they usually? If you're interested in leveling up the classes and weapons, because if not, well, it might not take too long for you to play through all 6 operations once or twice. On average, a single mission took us between 30 and 60 minutes to complete, depending, well, on a lot of variables. Yes, depending on the difficulty that we played on, but also depending on how many extra hordes got called in that we didn't properly interrupt, or how many extra side bosses were spawned throughout the encounter. The higher the difficulty will make things take longer. Enemies take longer to kill. They're also deadlier, so you have to play more carefully and more reserved. You've got less ammo to work with. All of these things can increase emissions duration. And I'll also say that even after all of my time playing this game, I didn't get too very far into the tier 3 difficulty. I never completed a single match on tier 3. It was that much of a challenge. Though worth mentioning here, at this point in time, I was playing the game by myself. It was solo. My mates weren't available at the time. Although I will add that the AI in this game is pretty good. You always have AI teammates, even if you're not playing with any other real people. There will be 2 AI teammates in there by default, and
that's
they're
good to
pretty
hear.
good. At least they never die. Like literally, I never saw an AI teammate die once, and they will always revive you as well if you
That's
happen to die.
good.
So the AI in this thing is pretty good, but yeah, the game can be quite difficult. Let's talk a bit about the details and specifics about things like the classes and progression. So for classes, as mentioned, when you play the multiplayer, you are asked to pick from one of 6 available classes. Here's a basic rundown of what they do. The tactical class has a scan that will reveal enemies in an area and then also make them more vulnerable to damage. For weapons, he can choose between any of the ranged main hand weapons in the game, the only class that can do that. He also has a bolt pistol for offhand and a chainsword for melee options. This appears to be just a good all-arounder range class, especially since it's the only class that can use any of the main hand weapon types in the game. The assault class has a jump pack that enables enhanced dashes and powerful jump slams. Doesn't have a main hand weapon, but instead has a pistol offhand. Really, melee is the main focus of this class. With him, you can choose to use the Thunderhammer, Chainsword, or Power Fist. Really fun class to play. The jump pack movement and targeting is a little
That's
quirky,
really
but
cool.
the Thunderhammer
Okay,
just
so
feels incredible to use.
they
If you
play
like
very,
melee,
very
if you like dodging
different.
attacks, seems like assault is the way to go. The Vanguard has a grapnel launcher. This allows you to propel towards an enemy with a diving kick. You can choose between carbines or a melta rifle in the main hand. You've got a bolt pistol offhand and a combat knife or chainsword for melee. This is actually the class we liked the least. It just felt a bit squishy, didn't seem to hit as hard as the other classes, and also didn't really provide the utility that would be beneficial for a group, at least from what little we saw. The Bulwark, this was my main class. It is your big tank. He's got the chapter banner. You place it on the ground and it will restore armor to all squad members within an area, and then even later upgrades would have it damaging enemies in that area as well. Really, really good ability. No main hand option. Instead, you have a shield and a pistol offhand, as well as either a chainsword, power sword, or power fist for melee. Very, very strong tank class. The shield absorbs all basic attacks, including ranged attacks. If played well, this just seems like a great PvE class. The sniper is what you expect. They've got a camo cloak that will conceal you until your next attack. You can choose between bolt snipers or SMGs with a bolt pistol offhand, and your melee is a combat knife. Ranged stealth, just always nice, pretty straightforward class. And then finally, the 6th class is the heavy, who has the ability Iron Halo that creates a powerful barrier blocking all ranged damage in front of them. No melee option, unfortunately. Instead, you've got your heavy bolter or heavy plasma incinerators as your main weapon. Really, really powerful ranged attack, and the Iron Halo ability is great, but boy, not being able to melee, kind of a big bummer. I don't know about that. I should mention as well that when you form a squad, you cannot have more than 1 Space Marine of each of the classes, so everyone's gonna have to pick and choose, fighting over their favorites, right? All right, progression and customization, there's quite a bit of this. So first you get your perk tree. Every class has its own perk tree. As you play, you level up, unlocking new perks within each level for 24 total unlocks.
So you got core, team, gear, fucking dyslexia, man. Okay.
These are divided into core, team, gear, and signature skills. Core skills usually affect the basic playstyle of your class. So for example, the assault class has various melee core skills, like not being knocked back whenever charging a heavy melee attack. Team skills, as they imply, are buffs that help your entire team. Things like shorter cooldowns for everyone, increased melee damage, or faster armor regeneration. Gear skills are very class specific. So for the jump pack class, most of these perks were about improving your ground slam, whereas for the bulwark, all of these would either improve your banner or your shield abilities. And then signature are super powerful buffs at the very end of each of the trees. So on my main class, the bulwark, I got to choose between dropping a free grenade whenever my armor depleted, my perfect parries resulting in instantly capacitating even elite enemies, or not being interrupted as long as I ever have any armor left. Really, really strong stuff. Now, as you level, you move horizontally across the tree, unlocking new perks in each category inventory along the way. Eventually, once you have everything unlocked, you're able to pick one from each vertical row to have active at any given time. There's also weapon progression in the game as well. You gain experience by using weapons in missions. You level them up, unlocking upgrades. These include versions, so you start with the standard version of a weapon that can then be upgraded to higher rarities. These are Mastercraft, Artificer, and then Relic qualities. With each tier, you have multiple options within those
and they
to
look
choose from,
different
with the
too.
choices altering things about the weapon, like they will change the weapon damage, spread, speed, range, cleave damage, and more options depending on the weapon type. And then there's also weapon perk trees. These give you 2 paths to choose from. There is some overlap as you progress where you can swap back and forth between the two, but each one of the trees just comes with various additional enhancements for that particular weapon. And then cosmetics. This is Warhammer after all. Half of the game's fun is all about having a cool coat of paint. So you start off with a few default colors for your base outfit, and then from there, there's tons of unlocks rewarded via playing the game. Basically, the more missions that you complete or the more PvP matches you win, the more armor sets you unlock, getting visually more interesting along the way. There's also color and emblem skins available for various Space Marine chapters. I counted 18 of these in total in the base game, and then 12 additional ones that were locked behind.
If you know anything about in-game, in any game, you know it's all about the fashion. You know, you gotta look the coolest, man.
DLC.
We all know this. MMOs,
DLC sets, there seems to be quite a lot of visual and color combinations and variety just in the base game. At least I was happy with what's available. I'm not sure like what Warhammer fanatics will think about this,
games,
especially if you have an affinity to one of the Space Marine chapters that is locked behind DLC. RIP, that kind of sucks, right? You are able to customize just about everything, by the way, from the emblem and colors on your helm, pauldrons, breastplate, war gear, gauntlets, and greaves, to then adding various adornments on top of all of that. Weapons also have cosmetic unlocks that will be tied to any weapon upgrade that you've unlocked for that weapon. And then there's this thing called trials,
what's up?
A little small additional bit of content. Essentially,
thanks
every
for the follow.
has 3 trials that they can complete. This rewards additional upgrade currency and resources. They're sort of just like these mini combat challenges and tiny arenas. You're asked to complete a set of objectives within a certain time period. If you complete all 3 requirements, that gives you a gold star. At least from my experience, this was very easy. I got a gold star.
The Drake drama, you talking about like with Kendrick, or is more stuff going on with him? Like, so all I know is about like the whole Kendrick and Drake thing. I kept up with that, but if there's more, yeah. I mean, I was keeping up with Drake. I mean, even before that. I mean, I thought he was a weirdo before Kendrick called him out. Wait, Pharrell Williams called him out in a kids movie? What movie? What fucking movie? I have no clue about that at all. You have to know what movie it is, because I had no clue about that. Look, if anybody else was calling him out, I have no clue about that. What? Despicable Me? What? After this, I'll pull it up. I'm watching this Warhammer 40k Space Marines 2 video. Almost over with. So yeah, I'll pull it up after this. I did not know what the fuck happened. I mean, I'm not surprised everybody's calling him, like, you know, I'm surprised everybody didn't do it a long time ago. Like, after I heard he was talking to, you know, what's her name? Bobby, I was like, that's weird. Then after I heard that, like, you know, the whole girl on the stage thing and everything, I just thought he was fucking weird. Like, then he got into it with Drake. I was like, oh boy, you cooked. Like, don't even start this. Like, you can't say, like, during the whole Drake thing, oh yeah, I planted that person, blah blah blah. Bro, You were on stage and you kissed a 17-year-old. Then, no, Millie Bobby Brown came out. Was like, yeah, I talked to Drake and he gives me advice on boys and stuff. That's weird. She was like 14. You were like mid 30s, late 30s. I was like, that's weird. Like that is weird. Like, why are you talking to these young girls and do like it's weird. Like I said, then when the whole Kendrick thing came out, I was like, oh, see, for real, legit taking. Okay, so he said the song was, so he didn't confirm it, but he was like, oh, it's off from some recent drama. It makes sense. We all know. So yeah, it's on a kids movie, so yeah, we know who he's talking about. We all know who he's talking about. Cause why put it on a kids movie? But I'm gonna finish this video because I'm gonna make it into a YouTube video too.
In all three on my bulwark in the very first try. And that pretty much does it for our overview of my time with Space Marine 2. I gotta say, all in all, I had a really fun time playing this game. Even though I was restricted to a single campaign mission and 2 operations, I just wanted to keep on playing. Like, long after my friends were done, I was grinding operations with my AI teammates, leveling up the bulwark class along with my plasma pistol and power
sword, that makes sense. With all of them being close friends, yeah.
And just to
you know
keep
he's gonna
game
you know who it's
all
about.
I am very much looking forward to the full release of the game, seeing what the campaign has to offer, going through the rest of the operations. But really, it's the 6 vs 6 PvP mode that I cannot wait to get my hands on. It was just stupid good fun in the original Space Marine, so I'm hoping they deliver here as well. But yeah, at its core, from what I've seen.
Wait, they had 6 v 6 PvP mode in the original Space Marines? I did not know that. I'm really thinking about buying the first Space Marines. This is try it out. When did the first one come out? Hold on. I don't even know when it came out. Let's see, War. I'm gonna have to set up and move this stupid mic. Warhammer 40k, Space Marines. I don't want to. When did the first one come out? What the fuck, man? Not 2. I didn't even type in 2. Why are you gonna give me 2? Is this it? Okay, so 2011. It's about. That was about what? 13 years ago. I don't. I still want to try it out. I don't know, I'm gonna try that out.
In Space Marine 2, it is just plain fun to play. The combat is so satisfying.
That is a dead giveaway.
I'm excited to spend more time with the game. So Space Marine 2 is currently set to release on September 9th.
Yeah, 13 years ago. But
I will certainly do a full video review.
Hopefully it's not too expensive.
Version. I think if anything, one of the biggest potential downfalls for this game might be the amount of content that it has. Like, a lot of times when developers say that their game is X hours long, you'll see people finish it in like half that time, right? So if you're saying 10 to 12 and people are finishing it in 5 to 6 plus 6 operations and then just the PvP, that could be a little light for people. I think it really depends though on how you approach the game. If you want to repeat the operations, play on the higher difficulties, level up your class and your weapons. If you're just going through one time, if it takes you 6 hours to finish the campaign and then you play through all 6 operations which take you 30 minutes.
So does that mean it's good?
that's not going to be, and you're not interested in the PvP, like it really is going to depend on the people. If you're interested in replaying operations, if you care about the PvP,
Bob,
if you want to play the campaign on more than one difficulty, I think we're going to just see a wide array of opinions about this game's content, depending on how people approach it. Because I feel like it could definitely be the case that some people are going to, quote, play through everything and then be done in like under 15 hours, whereas other people could easily get 50 plus hours out of it. I mean, hey, look, I sunk over 20 hours in just 2 operations.
Yeah, it's good. Okay. Well, yeah, I can see that. Some people just gonna fly through the game, probably beat it like in fucking 5 hours, 5 to 8 hours, because they said the campaign is like, what they say, like 11 hours. So yeah, some people probably gonna beat it half the time, quit playing it or whatever. Then you're probably gonna have people who really want to like get the cosmetics and upgrade all the weapons, or at least most weapons, beat some of the hardest difficulty in the game. And I bet you're gonna have people playing the PvP. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be the greatest or like the worst, but I bet it's gonna be very interesting to play, at least. And people are gonna hop into it. Maybe a lot of people like it. Maybe a lot of people don't like it. It depends on like the core gameplay, how everything like functions. Like if the core gameplay is good, like once people like playing through like the campaign and everything, and they really like the loop of the game and stuff, they're probably gonna like the PvP too. But I'm really not expecting like for the PvP to be like super like big, like millions, 500,000 players playing it just because of the PvP. No, just like a little side thing. You get cosmetics from playing PvP and the campaign and the other like horde modes and stuff. It seems like the game has something for like everyone. You got your campaign players, you got your like PvE players, then you have like your PvP players, then you can like customize your Space Marine how you want and stuff by unlocking cosmetics and stuff. Like there is stuff to do in this game, and it may click with a lot of people.
And 1 campaign mission. I mean, I enjoyed what little is here so much that frankly, I think it's kind of odd that they canceled their planned pre-release open beta. Yes, they were going to have an open beta for this game prior to launch, and then they came out and said, no, we're not going to do it. We need to work on the game more. It's not ready yet. We're going to get it finished for launch, and then it's going to come out. And yeah, I don't get it. After spending my time with it, from everything I've seen, it is great.
What
like,
Warhammer games have you played?
Major bugs. I think maybe I got stuck in
like I've never played. I've only played Dark Tide. That's the only Warhammer game I've ever played. I've never been into the what is it, a board game or whatever. Never played the board game or anything. Never painted little figurines or anything. Like I really don't know much about Warhammer 40k universe. Oh, okay. I mean, I'm not gonna say anything just by watching videos, because there's a lot of games that I've only watched videos on and stuff, and I know they're pretty good games, like the Dark Soul games and stuff, Elden Ring. I've only played 1 Dark Soul game, and that was Bloodborne, and I beat like the first boss in that. But I watched so many videos and lore videos on, the Dark Soul games and stuff. I know they're good games. I actually want to play Elden Ring, but I'm so broke, can't afford to get the game. But yeah, I understand like just watching videos and stuff. 13 hours? That's yeah, I know the Warhammer universe is like very expensive. A lot of lore and stuff. It looks very like it looks very what's the word I'm looking for? Fucking sorry, I'm dyslexic. Interesting to me and stuff. Like I after this, I'm probably gonna download Dark Tide because I never finished that game. I never really got into it. Now I know on Steam there. I looked at the numbers. There's not a lot of players playing it. I mean, around like 4,000, and that's peak 4,000. It's not a lot of players, but I mean, there's still people, so I can probably find some games. Um, yeah, so I'm gonna download that, and I'm gonna see how much the first Space Marines, how much they cost. It cost. See, my ass thought I ought to be able to buy a game fully that I thought was cool in my. Oh yes, that's life. That's life. I just have tons of bills to pay, and I'm trying to do this full time and YouTube. So all I work is like 32 hours on the weekend. So I don't have a lot of money to spend. Most of them go. A lot of my money goes straight to bills, but I really don't mind that. I just like sitting here talking, so I know maybe one day, I will have the opportunities to buy any game I want and nope and play with you all. But for right now, I'm just struggling, so it is what it is. It's life. But I do want to see how much the old Space Marine game costs. Maybe check that out. But hopefully it's not too much. But let's finish this. Finish this.
Yeah, everything I saw was a blast. But I guess we will see very, very soon when the game fully releases in early September if there are any widespread issues. But that is all for today. Hope you enjoyed this preview of Space Marine 2. Like I said, I've enjoyed the game. I am planning to play the full release. I will do a full version, full review for the final version. So stay tuned for that. But that's it for today. Thank you as always. Hope you enjoyed. See you next time.
Okay. Okay, that's not. I really
So as you
I'm really excited for this game, and I look go follow him, Force Gaming. He makes excellent videos. If you haven't heard of him, I'm already subscribed to him, so like subscribe to him. Go like this video. I should probably save this video too, so when I make the YouTube video, I can just put it, watch later. But yeah, he makes excellent videos. He plays all kinds of games, MMOs, RPGs, you know, and so he has a very like diverse opinions on games. He just doesn't play one type of game. He plays them all, most of them. He's a really good guy. Okay, yeah. Let's watch that.